Oh, it's the season of strike action. It looks like it's about to kick into high gear. Actually, it's been quite a busy year for strikes. Other unions, we understand, could follow the PSA, Public Servants Association, in issuing a government notice to strike. The PSA says wage talks broke down yesterday. Workers want an increase of between 6.5 and 10%. Now, the offer on the table as it currently stands is only 3%. The public sector wage bill makes up about a third of government's expenditure. And of course, a strike would cripple the public services. Well, let's speak to Nehawu Deputy General Secretary. It's Mr. December Mavuso joining us this morning. Mr. Mavuso, good to have you with us. I appreciate the time. So are you going to be striking? We'll talk about numbers in a moment. Are you going to be striking?
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers. Well, you know that there are processes that must be followed first before you declare a strike. We are proceeding after rejecting the offer to a conciliation meeting on the 31st and the 1st as part of trying to resolve the dispute between us and government. It is only after that we will determine the way forward, whether we're able to resolve the dispute on the 31st and the 1st, or we're unable to resolve the dispute, and what members will then decide. So we're not yet there. We're not serving a notice. We've not served a notice because we're still in the dispute resolution process.
Talk to me about the 6.5 to 10% wage demands currently being demanded from the unions. Where do we get a number like that from? Because I'm asking because government has come back and said we can only give you 3. So I'm curious where the 6.5 to 10% came from. Help me understand.
First, let's go back a little on when government reneged on Resolution 1 of 2018. You know that already that eroded the value of public servants' wages by 4%, right? And last year, workers were given a gratuity which is not contributing to any pensionable income of workers. Therefore, and when we negotiated this year, even now, you know that the inflation is at 7%. So at the same time, the price of fuel, food, everything goes up. So the 10 to 6.5% as a compromise comes as a result of all of those factors. And we think that is reasonable, and because workers are made, especially the workers in the bracket of level 1 to 12, are made to sacrifice or pay for the public debt when actually politicians and executives are having it large. We know that recently the president had stopped what they were getting in terms of free electricity and all of those things. So that's basically where we come from.
I want to talk about your expectations of the budget speech, midterm budget speech, in a moment, Mr. Mavuso. But I just want to ask this as well. There's always a concern whenever we go into what's being called imminent strike action. I understand notices need to be given, those processes you spoke about. What happens with Nehawu workers who are essential workers? How are they treated? How is it different for them?
I'm not sure. What do you mean? How are they different or treated? But all workers have a right of freedom of association and to participate in the activities of the organization they belong to, including activities like a strike. The only thing is that in the area where there's essential services, the law requires that we have a minimum service level agreement, that a certain number of workers must remain, others must go out. So it does not prevent the strike altogether, but it regulates how you go about this. It says you must determine between yourself and the employer who goes out, who remains. So that's basically what we need to deal with if we decide to go on strike.
Help me understand the tone when a union like yours hears government coming back with 3%. Some people are calling it insulting. What would Nehawu describe a 3% wage offer from government as? How would you term that?
No, we agree. It's an insult to the public servants, especially because, as I was saying, that these are workers in the front line, in the coalface of public service delivery, who sacrificed during COVID. Even at that time of COVID, it is when government decided not to honor Resolution 1 of 2018. And you come back later, you started 0%, because when we started the negotiations, there was a 0% offer in May. Later on, it was 2%. When they realized that they've made a mistake by giving the public office better 3%, and it's only then that they put the 3% on the table. So it is not negotiating in good faith. It is really an insult to the public servants.
Mr. Mavuso, before I let you go, you and I have spoken many times. I'm sure you won't mind if I just move away from the strike at the moment, although you can tie this in very nicely if you want to. I just want to get your thoughts and expectations, midterm budget tomorrow, because we know how much we hear from the finance minister when it comes to the public sector wage and what that costs the country. What is your expectation? I'm sure you won't mind me asking to hear from the finance minister tomorrow, just before I say goodbye.
Well, the first thing is that government must stop the austerity budget. They must stop the neoliberal budget that they are pursuing, because it does not just affect the salaries of public servants, but it affects everything you do in terms of providing service delivery to your communities. It affects issues of infrastructure in hospitals, in schools, and everywhere. So we expect them to stop that. We can't talk a developmental state at the same time pursue an austerity program like our government is doing. The two can coexist. And that's really our expectation. The second thing is that, of course, if the minister, we expect him to put more money for the salaries of public servants, for the recruitment of more workers in the public service, so that we can continue our responsibility of providing quality service to our communities.